My mother used to tell me that monsters didn't live under the bed, they lived in our minds. She was wrong. The real monster lived down the hall, and she set a place for him at the dinner table every night. I spent most of my childhood thinking I was the broken one. I cried too easily. I flinched when people raised their voices. I hated the dark. I didn't like to be hugged. I thought I was just overly sensitive. Fragile, like my mother used to say, with a weary smile as she brushed my hair. Some girls are born soft, she'd say. God gives them to stronger families to learn how to survive. I didn't understand what she meant back then, but I do now. I understood it the day I opened the hollowed-out Bible in her closet and found pages that didn't belong, pages that changed everything. I was 28 years old when my mother died. It wasn't sudden. Cancer had eaten her slowly. In the final months, she asked me to forgive her more than once, but I thought it was about her parenting, her silence. Maybe even the way she turned a blind eye to Dad's drinking or Mark's temper. I had no idea. The truth was bigger than that, darker, more corrosive, and the worst part, it had always been there, hiding in plain sight, in her careful glances, in the way she knocked once, always once, before opening my bedroom door, in the extra prayer candles she lit on Fridays, in the way she pressed her lips together when I said I didn't want to be alone with Dad. I thought she didn't know. I thought she didn't hear. I thought she didn't believe me. But the truth? She did. She knew everything, and she chose silence. The thing is, trauma doesn't arrive with sirens. It creeps in. It teaches you to disassociate before you know what that word even means. It teaches you to survive inside your own head, to smile when it hurts, to hide bruises no one can see. It took me years to realize that I didn't grow up in a home. I grew up in a cage, and my mother was the one who locked the door. My childhood home looked normal from the outside. White siding, trimmed hedges, lace curtains in the windows. We had family photos on the mantel, a chore chart on the fridge, and a cross hanging in every room. People used to say how put together we were. Such a nice family, they'd whisper in church. They didn't see what happened when the lights went out. My father was a man people respected, a retired cop. Straight back, loud voice, handshake like a vice. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened, including my mother, including me, especially me. He had rules, so many rules. Don't leave your shoes by the door. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't lock your bedroom door, ever. That one was non-negotiable. He was always strict, but not cruel, at least not in ways anyone could prove. His discipline was old school, he'd say. And if I cried, that meant I was weak, ungrateful, a problem. Mark, my older brother, was quieter. He watched everything. He was 5 years older and had my father's cold eyes, but none of his charisma. From as early as I can remember, I felt uneasy around him. He had a way of standing too close, of brushing past me in the hall, like he was testing a boundary no one else could see. I told my mother once, I couldn't have been more than 9. "Mark watches me when I change," I whispered. She didn't look at me, just folded the laundry in her lap. "He's just curious. Don't tempt him, sweetheart." That sentence split something inside me, a sentence that told me 2 things very clearly. She knew. It was my fault. From that day on, I stopped asking for help. Instead, I learned to live with it. I counted the steps between my room and theirs. I trained myself to wake at the sound of the floorboard creak outside my door. I faked stomach aches to avoid being home alone with Mark. I tried to disappear into corners. But the thing is, you can't disappear in a house where your presence is the target. You just become quieter, smaller. You become so still that the pain almost passes through you. At school, I was the shy girl, the one with perfect attendance, good grades, and no friends. Teachers thought I was gifted. I was just surviving. Sometimes I'd hear them at night, my parents arguing in hushed tones, my father angry, my mother pleading. Once, I heard her say, "She's not ready," and I held my breath so hard I thought I'd pass out. Ready for what? By the time I turned 12, I had chronic migraines. Panic attacks I didn't have a name for. I'd flinch when someone opened a door too fast. My hair started falling out in clumps. My mother said it was hormones. She gave me a Bible and told me to pray harder. What she didn't give me were answers. And when Mark turned 17, something changed. He became bolder, hungrier. One night, he cornered me in the laundry room. I remember the way the dryer buzzed behind me, how loud it was, how my breath caught in my throat when he whispered, "You know, Dad said it's okay now." I don't remember what happened after that. My brain shuts that part off like a blown fuse. But I remember the feeling afterward, the deep, cold shame that made my skin itch, the way my mother avoided my eyes at breakfast, how no one said a word. After that, the house got even quieter. No more arguments, no more candles, no more bedtime prayers. Just silence, the kind of silence that feels like a scream held underwater. I left for college the second I turned 18. Never looked back. Blocked their numbers. Changed mine. I'd told people I was an orphan. In a way, I was. Or maybe I just wished I had been. For 10 years, I never went home. I built a new life, as far away as I could afford. I even started to believe I was healing, that the past was just a bad dream. Then the phone rang. It was my mother's voice. Weak. Fragile. "It's cancer," she said. "They gave me 6 months. Please come home." And I did. Because even when someone burns you, you still hope they'll be the one to make it stop hurting. Coming back home was like stepping into a preserved photograph. Everything was still there. The same furniture, same beige wallpaper, even the same musty scent of lavender and old wood. Except now, the house felt emptier. My father had died 3 years earlier from a heart attack. Mark had moved out, no forwarding address. It was just her, frail, smaller than I remembered, sunk deep into the couch cushions like she was trying to disappear. She looked at me like I was a ghost. "It's good you came," she said, then coughed until her whole frame shook. I stayed out of obligation, not love. We barely spoke. I cooked, cleaned, drove her to chemo, but we danced around each other like strangers forced to share a room. The only time she seemed alive was when she watched me sleep. I could feel her eyes through the cracked door. One night, while she was sleeping, I went into her room looking for her heating pad. I opened the closet and saw something that didn't belong. A Bible, but not her Bible. It was older, dusty, tucked behind a box of scarves, and heavy, heavier than it should have been. When I opened it, a soft thump hit the floor. Pages, loose leaf pages, yellowed, handwritten in blue ink, dated entries. I froze. The first one read, "Forgive me, Lord, for the sins I allow to happen in my house." My blood went cold. I sat down on the carpet and read for what felt like hours. He says it helps him sleep, that it calms him, that if I won't give him peace, our daughter will. Mark came to me last night. He said he had dreams about her. I scolded him. I told him it was wrong, but he's just like his father. Maybe it's in the blood. Sometimes she cries in her sleep. I leave the door cracked open to remind him not to go too far. God, how do I stop this without breaking my family? Entry after entry. Excuses. Rationalizations. Self-pity dressed up as martyrdom. Not once did she call it what it was. Not once did she call me her daughter. She referred to me only as the girl, or her. She knew. She had known everything. And instead of stopping it, she watched. She monitored. She documented it like it was a storm she couldn't control. But she never left, never fought, never even named it. And worst of all, she protected them, both of them. Mark wasn't just mimicking Dad, he had become his replacement. There were entries that implied it continued even after my father died, that she blamed me for keeping Mark restless, that she thought I invited his attention. I started shaking. My hands, my spine, like something inside me had snapped loose and was rattling. I couldn't breathe, because all these years, I thought the worst part was what they did. But this was different. My mother wasn't just complicit. She was in charge of the silence. The next morning, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I made her breakfast. I watched her take her pills. I watched her hands shake as she brought the fork to her mouth. And for the first time in my life, I felt no guilt, no sorrow, no love, only clarity. She looked at me and said, "You've been quiet lately." I smiled. Just tired. But inside me, something had woken up. Something that had been buried under years of shame and prayers and false memories. And it was no longer afraid of speaking. After I found the pages, something inside me cracked open and wouldn't close again. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her words every time I blinked. "Forgive me, Lord, for the sins I allow." No, Mom, you didn't allow. You enabled. You orchestrated the silence. You gave them cover. I started looking for a therapist the next day. I hadn't been to therapy before. I always told myself I didn't need it, that I'd moved on. But now, I needed someone, anyone, to help me keep my hands steady. I couldn't even hold a cup of coffee without trembling. The therapist's name was Erin. She had a calm voice, but it was the way she listened that made me crumble. After 2 sessions, I told her everything. Not just what happened when I was little, but about the Bible, the pages, the complicity, the way my mother's voice still haunted me when I slept. She didn't flinch. She didn't question my memory. She just said, "It's not your shame to carry anymore." That was the first time I cried without feeling like I was doing something wrong. I started gathering documents, old journals, my medical records from childhood. Erin encouraged me to write a statement, not for the police yet, just for myself. But I couldn't stop there. Mark was still out there. He had children now, a daughter, and I couldn't stop thinking, what if it's not over? So I contacted a lawyer. I didn't expect it to go anywhere. I knew it would be my word against theirs. No physical evidence, no witnesses, just the journal pages and the body of a woman too dead to testify. But the lawyer took me seriously, more seriously than I expected. Then I got a message, a cousin, Melissa. "Hey, I heard from Aunt Helen that you're stirring things up about your mom and Mark. Just letting you know, if you go through with this, don't expect the family to stand behind you." Then another one. "You've been unstable since you were a kid. Don't ruin what's left of our name over your dreams." It escalated quickly. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were calling, texting, threatening. Some didn't even ask if it was true. They just didn't want it to be. Not about Mark, not about their sister, not about their own memories. Because if I was right, they were all wrong. For never asking questions, for never seeing, for looking away. I remember sitting in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart racing like I'd committed a crime. Was I doing the right thing? Was I sure? Then I remembered the way Mark whispered my name when he thought I was asleep. The way my mother checked my sheets in the morning like it was normal. The way no one ever opened my door when I screamed at night. I was sure. I was more than sure. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing this because silence nearly killed me. Now it was time to speak. I didn't expect the case to move forward, but sometimes justice starts in small, unexpected places. The lawyer asked if I had anything else, any kind of record, letter, tape. I said no. But a week later, while sorting through a box of my mother's old cassette tapes labeled Church Choir, I found one without a label. Just a number, March 14th. I popped it into an old tape player. There was static first, then voices. My mother's voice, clear, young, panicked. He did it again, Father Michael. I I walked in and he was with her. I know it's evil. I know it's wrong. But what do I do? If I speak up, he'll destroy us. And Mark is starting to do it too. He's watching her. I see it. I know where this leads. A long silence, then sobbing, quiet, guttural, and too real. I couldn't breathe. The voice of the priest on the other end was muffled, calm, asking her to pray, telling her that she must be strong, that God forgives. He never once told her to go to the police. I handed the tape over to the lawyer. 2 weeks later, we received word. The case was going to court. Mark didn't show up, not at first. But when he finally did, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked small, still dangerous, but hollow, like a man hiding behind decades of denial and entitlement. I sat across from him and didn't blink. The courtroom was half empty. No family, no support. Just a few curious faces, a judge with tired eyes, and the sound of my breath echoing in my ears. When they played the tape, something shifted. The judge leaned forward. The room fell quiet. And I swear, for the first time, someone actually heard me. Afterward, in the hallway, my cousin Melissa stopped me. You know she tried to stop him, right? Your mom. She didn't know how. I looked her dead in the eyes. She knew enough to light a candle. She knew enough to knock once and wait. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she did it anyway. Melissa didn't argue. She just walked away. I wasn't looking for validation. I wasn't hoping for healing. I didn't believe in closure anymore. But standing in that hallway, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clean. Not whole. Not healed. But no longer carrying the weight that was never mine to bear. My mother chose silence. My father chose control. Mark chose to repeat the cycle. And I chose truth. Even if it shattered everything. People think healing feels like sunlight breaking through clouds. It doesn't. It feels like walking through ash. Quiet, gritty, lonely. I didn't get my family back. I didn't get apologies. Mark vanished again. The case stalled. Too old. Too little physical evidence. No conviction. But it's on record now. It's not a secret anymore. Sometimes that's the win. I moved to a new apartment. I started painting, even though I'm terrible at it. I adopted a dog. He sleeps at my door every night. I see Aaron once a week. I stopped waiting for nightmares. I stopped needing someone to believe me, because I believe me. There's power in that, in not carrying their sins anymore. I was never the broken one. I was the one they tried to break. And even though I still flinch at certain sounds, even though my mother's voice sometimes echoes when I close my eyes, I know now that monsters don't just live in our minds. Sometimes they live in our homes, but they only survive in the silence. And I'm not silent anymore.